The night was cold, the streets were almost empty, and the rain fell like a silver curtain over the alien city. Neon signs glowed in strange colors. Reflecting on the wet stone road, shadows of tall alien buildings stretched across the street, making the city look like a maze of darkness and light. Most people walked quickly, hiding under hoods or umbrellas, wanting only to get home. But then, a soft sound broke through the noise of the rain. A sob. It was quiet at first, but it grew louder with each step he took. A human man named Aaron stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, listening. The sound came from the other side of the street. He looked around. No one else seemed to notice, or maybe they noticed but didn't care. In this city, strangers were invisible unless they caused trouble. Aaron crossed the road, his boots splashing in the puddles. There, under the flickering light of a broken street lamp, sat a young alien girl. Her knees were pulled to her chest, her thin arms wrapped around them. Her strange silvery hair was plastered to her face from the rain. Her clothes were torn, and one sleeve hung loosely, as if it had been ripped. Her eyes were lowered, but Aaron could see they were swollen and red. She was crying, shaking, and completely alone. People passed by without stopping. Some looked at her with cold eyes, others didn't look at all. Aaron hesitated for a moment. He was new here, and helping an alien stranger could be dangerous, but something inside him refused to walk away. He stepped closer and crouched down in front of her. "Hey," he said softly, his voice almost lost under the rain. "What happened to you?" The girl's shoulders tensed. Slowly, she lifted her head, and her eyes met his. They were unlike any eyes he had seen before, glowing faintly, like stars seen through tears. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then her lips moved, and her voice came out in a whisper. "They took everything?" Aaron frowned. "Who?" he asked. She shook her head, glancing around as if afraid someone might hear. Her breathing was uneven, her hands gripping her torn sleeve. "I can't tell you here," she said, her voice trembling. "They'll find me." Rainwater ran down Aaron's neck, but he ignored it. He could feel the eyes of a few onlookers watching from a distance. He knew this girl was in trouble, real trouble, and leaving her here could mean she wouldn't survive the night. "All right," he said quietly. "Come with me." At first, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she placed one hand in his. Her skin was cold, colder than the rain, and her fingers shook as she stood. Aaron helped her up, pulling his jacket off and wrapping it around her. The jacket was far too big for her small frame, but it covered her well. The girl kept glancing over her shoulder as they walked. Every shadow seemed to make her nervous. They passed a group of aliens standing under a shop awning. One of them noticed the girl and whispered something to the others. Aaron could feel the tension in the girl's hand as she gripped his arm. He didn't look back, didn't give them a chance to follow. Instead, he quickened his pace, leading her toward the side streets. The rain grew heavier, the sound filling the narrow alleys. Aaron's small apartment was only a few blocks away. It wasn't much, but it was dry and safe, at least safer than the open streets. When they finally reached his building, the girl's breathing was shallow, as if she had been holding back panic the whole way. Inside, Aaron guided her to the small couch. The warmth of the room made her shiver harder, as if the cold leaving. Her body reminded her of how frozen she'd been. He grabbed a towel and handed it to her. She took it silently. Drying her hair without meeting his eyes, Aaron sat across from her. "Do you want to tell me now?" he asked gently. She stopped moving, holding the towel tightly in her hands. Her eyes lifted, and for a second, Aaron saw pure fear there. "They'll kill me if I tell you," she whispered. The words were barely louder than the rain tapping. Against the window, Aaron leaned forward, his voice steady. "They'll have to get through me first, for the first time." Her lips curved slightly, not a smile, but something close. But before she could say more, a shadow moved past the Window outside. Aaron's instincts sharpened. Someone was watching them. Asterisk. Aaron stood completely still, his eyes fixed on the shadow that had just passed the window. The girl noticed his sudden change in expression and clutched the towel tighter around herself. The rain outside masked any footsteps, but he felt it, that quiet sense of being watched. After a long breath, he moved to the door, opened it a crack, and glanced down the hallway. There was no one there. Only the faint hum of the building's old heating system and the smell of wet stone drifting in from the street below. When he closed the door, the girl was staring at him, her strange eyes reflecting the small light in the room. She didn't ask what he saw. Maybe she already knew. Aaron stepped closer, kneeling so they were at the same level. "You're safe here," he said, though a part of him wasn't sure it was true. She shook her head slowly. "Nowhere is safe for me." Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath, a deep sadness mixed with fear. She pulled her wet sleeve higher on her arm, revealing skin that seemed almost translucent under the dim light, and there. It was a faint, glowing mark. It wasn't just a tattoo. It pulsed faintly, like it was alive. Aaron reached out without thinking, but she flinched back. "Don't touch it," she whispered. "It will hurt you." He froze, his hand hovering. "In the air, what is it?" he asked. She looked away, her gaze fixed on the floor. "It's a seal of exile," she said quietly. "It means I am no longer part of my family, my house, or my people. It means anyone can harm me without punishment, and anyone who helps me will be punished too." Aaron leaned back, the weight of her words sinking in. He knew alien politics could be harsh, but this was something else entirely. "Why?" he asked. "What did you do?" She laughed once, but it was a bitter, broken sound. "I refused," he frowned. "Refused what?" She raised her eyes to his, and for a moment he saw the storm she carried inside her. "I was chosen to be bound to someone I didn't want. A warlord's son. He doesn't care about me. He only cares about the power my family's name brings. I told them I would not go, and for that, they took everything. My home, my rights, my future." Her voice broke at the last word. Aaron didn't speak. He just watched her. Because in that moment he understood something. She wasn't just running from danger. She was running from a whole world that had decided she didn't deserve to live. The room felt smaller now. The walls closer, the rain outside louder. Aaron stood and walked to the small heater in the corner, turning it up. "You can stay here tonight," he said. "Rest. Get warm. Tomorrow we'll figure something out." She shook her head. "You don't understand. They're already looking. For me, the seal sends a signal to the city registry. They know I'm still alive. And they will send hunters." Aaron didn't like the sound of that, but he didn't back away from it either. "Then we'll make sure they don't find you," he said firmly. She studied him, as if trying to see if he really meant it. After a long pause, she whispered, "Why? Why help me?" He gave a small, tired smile, because no one else will. For the first time, she seemed unsure what to say. She wrapped the jacket he had given her tighter around herself. The glow from her mark faded slightly, almost as if it was reacting to her calmer heartbeat. Outside, the city kept moving. Sirens in the distance, the hum of hovercraft engines, the echo of alien voices in the rain. Aaron went to the window, looking down at the street. Two figures in dark cloaks were walking slowly, scanning doorways and alleys. They didn't look like city guards. They moved too quietly. Too purposefully, bounty hunters, he realized. He stepped back from the glass, his mind already working on what to do next. The girl noticed the change in his stance and spoke softly. "They're here, aren't they?" He didn't answer directly. "You need to stay out of sight," he said, pointing toward the small storage space under the floorboards in the corner. She hesitated. But when he opened it and showed her it was large enough to hide in, she climbed down without argument when the knock came at the door a minute later. Aaron's heartbeat didn't change. He opened it just enough to see two alien faces. Both sharp-eyed, both wet from the rain, were looking for someone. One said in a voice that carried authority, a young female marked with exile. She was seen in this area. Aaron shrugged, leaning casually on the doorframe. I haven't seen anyone like that. They scanned his face. One of them taking a slow step forward as if trying to read the truth in his eyes. But then the other shook his head and they turned away, disappearing back into the rain. Aaron closed the door quietly, locking it, then lifted the floorboard. The girl was still there, her knees pulled to her chest, her glowing eyes wide. They'll come back, she said. He nodded. I know, he didn't tell her. But he was already planning how to get her out of the city before they did, because now it wasn't just her life on the line, it was his too. The morning came without sunlight. The city sky was covered in a thick layer of dark clouds, and the rain had turned into a cold mist that clung to the skin. Aaron hadn't slept. He sat by the small window, watching the street below. The girl was still asleep on the couch, cued under his jacket like it was her only shield against the world. Every time she moved, the faint glow of the mark on her arm caught his eye. It wasn't just a brand, it was a beacon, and somewhere out there, it was calling to the wrong kind of people. By mid-morning, the quiet was broken. A low hum came from the edges of the city, growing louder until it became a constant vibration in the air. It was the patrol drones, small, fast, and designed to scan the streets for anyone on the registry. Aaron cursed under his breath. They were searching early. That meant they had new information. Maybe someone had seen them the night before. He moved to wake her, touching her shoulder gently. Her eyes opened instantly. Alert, despite her exhaustion. They're here, he said. And she didn't need to ask who. She stood quickly, pulling the jacket tighter. The seal will give me away if they get too close, she whispered. Aaron nodded, thinking fast. He grabbed an old metal sheet from his workshop corner, a leftover from repairs, and quickly wrapped it around her arm beneath her sleeve. This might block the signal. For a while, he said. She looked at him as if surprised he would even try. The hum of the drones drew closer, their red lights sweeping the wet streets like hunting eyes. Aaron pulled her toward the back door, leading her into the narrow alley behind the building. It smelled of damp metal and old fuel, but it was empty, at least for now. They kept low, moving fast, the girl's soft steps barely making a sound on the slick ground. The further they went, the more signs they saw. Holographic images of her face flickering on street corners. Alien text scrolling beneath that Aaron couldn't read but didn't need to. It was a warning, a price, a hunt. They turned a corner, and that's when they saw them. Two alien enforcers scanning the street. With handheld trackers, the devices gave off a soft beep, growing louder as they swept them across the road. Aaron's hand tightened on hers, pulling her into the shadow of a rusted ventilation unit. The trackers passed close enough for him to hear the faint mechanical clicks inside. But then a distant shout distracted them. Another enforcer down the street had spotted something. They moved away quickly. Aaron exhaled slowly. They couldn't rely on luck twice. They headed deeper into the old part of the city, where buildings leaned into each other and the streets twisted into confusing patterns. It was the kind of place where light struggled to reach the ground, and even the drones were slower here. But danger had a way of finding them, and soon enough. They weren't alone. A figure stepped out from behind a metal gate, tall and wrapped in dark armor, the face hidden behind a helmet with a single blue visor. Aaron knew instantly this wasn't a city enforcer. This was a bounty hunter. The kind that didn't ask questions, the kind that got paid for results. The hunter didn't move quickly, just stood there blocking the path, the visor turning slightly toward the girl. Aaron stepped forward, putting himself between them. "She's not going with you," he said. His voice steady despite the pulse of adrenaline in his veins. The hunter tilted their head slightly, then reached for something at their belt. A flash of metal, a stunned baton. Aaron didn't wait. He grabbed the nearest thing he could. A length of pipe from the alley floor. The fight was fast. The hunter moved with precision. Every strike aimed to disable. Aaron blocked and countered. The sound of metal against metal echoing off the wet walls. The girl pressed herself against the alley wall. Her eyes wide, but not screaming. Maybe she knew noise would bring more trouble. Aaron took a hit to the shoulder, pain shooting down his arm, but he swung the pipe hard. Catching the hunter in the side and forcing them back, the hunter stumbled. Then recovered, but instead of continuing, they took a step back and spoke. The voice was distorted through the helmet. "She's worth more alive than dead, human. But you'll die if you stay with her." Before Aaron could answer, the hunter threw a small disc to the ground, releasing a burst of smoke that filled the alley. When it cleared, they were gone. Aaron turned to the girl. She was shaking. Not from the cold this time, but from the reality of what had just happened. "They won't stop," she said quietly. "They'll keep coming until they sit." "They have me?" Aaron met her gaze. "Then we'll just have to stay ahead of them." They kept moving, slipping into the maze of the old city until even the hum of the drones was faint. But Aaron knew the hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun. And every step forward was one step closer to a confrontation neither of them could avoid. By the time they stopped, the mist had turned into a thin drizzle that clung to their clothes and hair. Aaron found a half-collapsed warehouse at the edge of the industrial district. The walls were streaked with rust, the windows cracked, but it offered cover from the sky and from prying eyes. He pushed the metal door open with a groan, guiding her inside. The air was thick with the smell of old oil and dust, but it was quiet. Only the faint dripping of water from the ceiling filled the space. She sat on an overturned crate, her arms wrapped around herself. The dim light from a broken skylight painted her in pale gray. Aaron lit a small lamp from his bag, its soft glow warming the shadows between them. For a while, neither spoke. Aaron watched her eyes as they followed the flicker of the lamp. She seemed far away, trapped in thoughts she didn't want to share. Finally, he broke the silence. "You've told me part of the story," he said slowly, "but not all of it." She didn't answer at first. Instead, she pulled back the sleeve that covered the metal sheet he had wrapped around her arm. The glowing mark pulsed faintly, like it was breathing. "It's not just a seal," she said quietly. "It's a tracker. And a brand of shame." Her voice trembled as she spoke. "But it's also a claim." Aaron frowned. "A claim?" She nodded, her gaze locking with his. "It means someone owns my fate, the warlord's son. When my family marked me, they tied me to him, even in exile, if I'm captured. I will be taken to him, not the courts." Aaron's stomach turned. "So this isn't just about running from guards," he said. "You're running from being taken." Her lips tightened, and she nodded once. "I refused the binding. I refused to be part of his breeding program. I was supposed to be a trophy, something for him to show off. But he wanted heirs, and he didn't care if I wanted the same." Her words came out like shards of glass, each one sharper than the last. Aaron felt a heat rise in his chest, not from anger at her, but at the idea that someone could treat another life like property. "So when you refused, your own family gave you up," he said. She laughed, but there was no joy in it. "They didn't just give me up, they sold me to him." Exile was only the cover. It keeps the public from asking questions. She looked down at her hands, small and trembling. "I thought, if I could reach the outer colonies, I could disappear, but they caught me once already. I escaped before they could deliver me. Now the bounty hunters are here to finish what they started." The drizzle outside turned heavier, drumming softly on the warehouse roof. Aaron moved closer, his voice calm but certain. Then we make sure they never get the chance. She blinked at him, confusion flickering in her eyes. Why are you helping me? She asked again. You don't know me. You could walk away, and no one would blame you. He looked at her for a long moment, then said simply, because no one should have to face this alone. Her breathing slowed, and for the first time, the tightness in her shoulders seemed to ease, but it didn't last long. A faint mechanical buzz echoed through the warehouse. Aaron instantly killed the lamp, plunging them into shadows. The sound grew louder. Moving just outside the walls, a search drone, its scanning beams sweeping over the cracked windows. They crouched low, moving silently to the far side of the warehouse. Aaron peeked through a gap in the wall. The drone hovered, its red eye glowing in the mist. After a moment, it drifted away. But they both knew it wasn't gone. It was marking the area for a ground search. We have to move again, Aaron whispered. She nodded. And they slipped out the back into a narrow service tunnel that led beneath the old streets. The tunnel. Walls were wet, lined with forgotten pipes. Their footsteps echoed softly after several minutes. They reached a junction where the tunnel split. Aaron stopped, scanning the faded signs in alien script. Which way takes us out of the city? He asked. She pointed left. That path leads to the old transit lines. They're abandoned but still connect to the outer gates. They moved quickly, the air growing colder as they descended. But before they could reach the end of the tunnel, a sound made them freeze. Soft, deliberate footsteps ahead. A silhouette appeared in the dim light, tall and armed, blocking the way forward. It wasn't a guard this time. Aaron could tell from the posture. This was another bounty hunter, but this one didn't wear a helmet. His face was marked with old scars, his eyes cold and calculating. He didn't draw his weapon. Instead, he smiled slowly. You've made my job very easy, he said, his gaze fixed on the girl. And my reward will be generous. Aaron stepped forward, placing himself between them. But the girl's hand gripped his arm. He's not like the others, she whispered, her voice shaking. He won't stop until one of us is dead. The tunnel was so quiet that Aaron could hear the faint drip of water somewhere far behind them. The bounty hunter's boots scraped against the wet floor as he took a slow step forward. His eyes locked on the girl, his hand resting lazily on the weapon at his hip. He looked like a predator who already knew the prey couldn't escape. Aaron didn't move back. Instead, he shifted his stance. Ready? The hunter's smile widened. A human, he said, in a tone that carried both mockery and curiosity. I was told you were just an escort, but you've been making trouble. Aaron said nothing. He could feel the girl's grip on his arm tighten, her breathing quickening. The hunter's free hand rose slowly, fingers tapping against the side of his head. A small device in his ear blinking red. They'll be here soon, he said casually. I've already called them, so you can hand her over now, and maybe I'll let you live. Aaron didn't reply with words. Instead, he swung first, his fist connecting with the hunter's jaw, the impact echoing in the narrow tunnel. The hunter staggered back, but only for a moment. Then he came forward fast. Drawing a blade that glinted in the dim light, Aaron grabbed a loose pipe from the wall, swinging it up just in time to block the slash. Sparks jumped where metal met metal. The sound of their fight filled the tunnel, sharp and loud. The girl backed against the wall, her eyes wide, but she didn't scream. Instead, she looked around, scanning the tunnel for anything she could use. The hunter pushed Aaron back with a heavy shove, sending him stumbling a step. The blade came again, this time grazing his arm. Aaron hissed but didn't stop. He countered with a sharp strike to the hunter's side. The man grunted, but didn't fall. A distant sound joined the fight. The low hum of approaching engines. Reinforcements were on their way. The girl knew they had seconds before the tunnel would be swarming with enemies. Her gaze landed on a rusted valve on the wall, a thick pipe running into the ground. She rushed to it, twisting hard. At first it didn't move, but then, with a screech, it gave way. A burst of steam exploded into the tunnel, white and thick, swallowing the air between Aaron and the hunter. The heat was blinding. The hunter cursed, swinging wildly. Aaron ducked low and drove his shoulder into the man's chest, slamming him into the wall. The impact knocked the weapon from his hand. It clattered across the floor, sliding into the steam. "Run," Aaron barked. Grabbing the girl's hand, they sprinted down the left corridor. Their footsteps muffled by the hiss of steam behind them. Shouts echoed in the distance, blurred by the sound of boots and engines. They ran until the tunnel opened into a wide maintenance chamber. In the center of the chamber was an old cargo lift, its platform covered in dust. Aaron yanked the control lever. The machinery groaned like it hadn't been used in years, but it started to move, lowering them slowly into the darkness below. Above, voices grew louder, the hunter's shout cutting through the noise. The lift creaked down to a lower passage. They jumped off before it reached the end, landing on a damp floor ahead. Faint daylight filtered through a rusted grate. Aaron pried it open with his bare hands, the metal cutting into his palms, but it gave way. They crawled out into the cold air. The girl stumbled onto a narrow service road, her breaths coming fast. She looked up and froze. Ahead of them stretched a single bridge, its skeletal frame crossing a wide river of black water. Alien patrol towers rose on the far side. Aaron scanned the scene quickly. "It's the only way out," he said. She shook her head. "It's suicide." He met her eyes. "Staying here is worse." They started toward the bridge, keeping to the shadows where they could. The wind off the river was sharp and carried the faint smell of metal and fuel. Halfway there, a patrol transport descended from the clouds, its searchlights sweeping the ground. They dove under the side rail, pressing flat against the cold steel. The lights passed over, but the sound of the engines didn't fade. The transport was circling. Aaron's jaw tightened. "We're going to have to walk right into their sight." "Aha," he said. She looked terrified, but there was a glimmer of determination there too. "Then let's make it count," she said, her voice steady for the first time since he'd met her. They stepped back onto the bridge, their boots clanging softly on the metal floor. The patrol transport turned toward them, and somewhere behind, in the city, the bounty hunter was surely already on their trail. The water roared below, the wind cut through them, and with each step forward, the choice became clear. This was either their way to freedom or their final stand. The bridge stretched ahead like a narrow blade cutting through the mist. The black water below churned in restless waves. The wind roared between the metal beams carrying the distant hum of engines. The patrol transport hovered closer, its searchlights sweeping in slow arcs. Aaron kept the girl close to his side, their steps quick but silent, each footfall ringing faintly on the steel floor. Halfway across, the inevitable happened. The searchlight froze on them, blinding white, swallowing the world. A voice boomed through the air in an alien language, sharp and commanding. Aaron didn't need a translation. They were being told to stop. The girl's grip on his arm tightened, her pulse racing against his skin. He didn't slow. The transport shifted position, lowering until it hovered just above the bridge. From the far side, figures in dark armor began moving toward them, their weapons catching the light from the near side. More figures emerged, blocking their way back. They were trapped in the middle. Aaron's mind raced, turning the metal grid under his boots into a map of possibilities. Escape wasn't going to be easy, maybe not possible at all, but standing still would be suicide. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. She nodded, though he could see the fear In her eyes, the first soldier stepped forward, weapon raised, a beam of blue light igniting at its tip. Aaron moved before the man could fire, slamming his shoulder into him. The weapon clattered across the bridge. Aaron kicked it into the river, without hesitation. 2 more soldiers came in fast, their boots pounding the steel. Aaron blocked one strike with his forearm, wincing at the pain. Then twisted the attacker's arm until a sharp cry escaped. The girl stayed low, scanning for any gap, her gaze caught on a service ladder that descended from the side of the bridge toward the river supports. It was barely visible in the shadows. There, she shouted, pointing. Aaron glanced over his shoulder, saw it, and understood. But getting there meant breaking through the soldiers, blocking the path. The patrol transport's engine screamed as it adjusted position, preparing to drop more troops. Aaron knew they had seconds at best. He grabbed a dropped stun baton from the floor. The charge still active. The crackle of energy lit his face in pale blue. He swung it in a tight arc, forcing the nearest soldier back. The girl moved when he moved, their steps in sync. A soldier lunged from the left, grabbing for her arm. Aaron's? The response was instant, a sharp blow to the helmet with the baton. The crack echoed, the soldier collapsed. They pushed forward, the ladder just meters away now. But another figure stepped into their path. It wasn't just another soldier. It was the bounty hunter from the tunnel. His armor scratched but his stance steady, the blue visor fixed on the girl. "End of the line," he said, his voice cutting through the wind. Aaron didn't slow. The hunter drew a blade, longer and sharper than before. The fight exploded in a clash of metal and movement. The hunter's strikes were fast and calculated, each one aiming for a vital point. Aaron's defense was rough, but relentless, his attacks less precise but driven by raw force. The girl moved along the edge of the bridge, looking for a chance. The hunter caught her movement and shifted his stance, but that moment of distraction was all Aaron needed. He hooked the baton under the hunter's weapon arm, twisting it hard. The blade clanged to the floor. Sliding toward the edge, the hunter roared and shoved Aaron back, nearly knocking him over the railing. The wind tore at them, the black water swirling far below. The girl dove for the ladder, gripping the cold rungs. "Aaron?" she shouted, her voice barely audible over the engines. Aaron gave the hunter one final shove, sending him staggering into another soldier. He turned and sprinted for the ladder, grabbing the rungs just as the transport's lights swept over him. Blaster fire erupted, blue bolts sizzling into the metal around them. The girl climbed fast, her small frame moving like a shadow in the mist. Aaron followed, the metal slick under his hands. They reached the lower support beams, crawling along them until they reached a maintenance hatch hidden beneath the bridge. Aaron wrenched it open, and they dropped inside, the echo of their landing swallowed by the roar of the river. Above, the shouts of soldiers and the hum of the transport grew distant in the darkness of the maintenance tunnel. Their breathing was the only sound. The girl leaned against the wall, her hair damp, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "We're still alive," she said softly. Aaron allowed himself a small, tired smile, for now. But both of them knew this wasn't the end. The city might be behind them soon, but the reach of those hunting her was far longer than the length of a single bridge. And somewhere beyond this escape, the final choice still waited. The maintenance tunnel curved upward, leading them away from the roar of the river. Each step felt heavier, their bodies sore from the fight. But neither stopped. Aaron's hands were scraped raw. The girl's breaths came in quick, sharp bursts. Still, they kept moving. The air slowly grew fresher, a faint scent of earth replacing the metallic dampness. When they finally emerged, it was into the open night. Far from the choking lights of the city, the sky above was a black ocean filled with stars. The ground beneath their boots was soft dirt instead of cold steel. The distant hum of engines was gone, replaced by the whisper of wind through low hills. For a long moment, they just stood there, breathing in the silence. The girl's glowing eyes lifted to the stars. Something unreadable passing over her face. Maybe relief, maybe disbelief. Aaron scanned the horizon. No towers, no patrols, only the faint glimmer of a village far in the distance. We need to keep moving, he said quietly. She nodded, though her gaze lingered on the sky a moment longer before following him. They walked for what felt like hours, the moonlight painting silver edges on the grass around them. Aaron could see the exhaustion in her steps, but she never complained. Finally, they stopped near the crest of a hill. From here, the lights of the city were just a faint glow on the horizon. The girl lowered herself to the ground, pulling his jacket tighter around her. I never thought I'd see this, she whispered, to be beyond those walls, to feel the air without fear. Aaron sat beside her, his eyes still scanning the dark in case the hunters had pushed this far. You're not safe yet, he said, but you're free for now. She turned to him, the faint glow of her mark hidden beneath the fabric. I don't understand you, she said softly. Why would a human risk this much for me? Aaron didn't answer right away. He picked up a small stone, turning it in his hand. Because no one else would, he finally said, and because I couldn't live with myself if I walked away. Her gaze didn't leave his face, the wind tugging at her silvery hair. Where will you go? She asked. He shrugged. Where you go? The answer came without hesitation. She blinked, startled. You'd come with me. His lips curved in a faint, tired smile. You think? I'd leave you now after all this. For the first time since he'd met her, a real smile touched her face. Small and fragile, but real. She looked back at the stars. My people will never forgive you, she said, her voice almost lost in the wind. They'll call you an enemy. Aaron leaned back on his hands, watching the constellations, then let them. The moment was broken by a faint flicker in the sky, a streak of light moving fast. His instincts tensed. But the girl's voice was calm. A trader ship, she said, heading to the outer colonies. Aaron looked at her. We could reach it. She nodded slowly. If we leave at dawn. They sat in silence for a while. The grass shifting softly in the breeze. The night cold but not cruel. Far away, a single howl echoed through the hills. The girl shivered, but Aaron shifted closer. His presence a quiet wall between her and the darkness. Eventually, her head leaned against his shoulder. The weight light but steady. I thought I would die alone in that street. She murmured, but you stopped. Aaron's eyes stayed on the horizon, where the city lights faded into the black. I'm glad I did. Above them, the stars shone like countless watchful eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel hunted. Not in this moment. Not with him here. The road ahead would be dangerous, but it was no longer one she had to walk alone, and somewhere deep inside, she knew that this meeting in the rain had changed not just her fate, but his too. Aaron closed his eyes briefly, listening to the wind, the quiet, the slow, even rhythm of her breathing beside him. Tomorrow they would run again, but tonight, under this endless alien sky, they had one, even if only for a while.